Good morning, friends. Good morning. Sorry we're running a few minutes late this morning. My computer is acting up and is giving me all kind of problems. And then on top of that, I once again realized that I had forgotten to change the title. So just going to take me a minute here to take care of that. Say title, and we can get on with this. Ooh, all right, and exit that one and get back to you. And get back to you. Good morning. Good morning. Again, apologies. My computer is acting up. At some point, I will have to replace it, but gotta wait on that for a little bit. Tax season, of course, is upon us, and all that other stuff. But I'm PB. I'm the pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church, and this is another episode of PB Reads the Bible. And it is it is episode 18 on our journey through the book of Judges, which normally would mean we're on chapter 18, but we're not, because we did chapter 18 yesterday, 17. We are on chapters 19, 20, and 21. We're going to finish up the book today, folks. These three are just so interwoven, so connected. You got to tell the whole story. Got to tell the whole story. But we'll get to there in a minute. So yeah, go ahead and check in. I see some folks are joining us and got some check-ins. Good morning, Pat. It is indeed. I love that sunshine too. Love that sunshine. Love that sunshine. But wear your sunglasses, people. Wear your sunglasses. Even in winter. In fact, in winter, it's probably even more important because their glare is the angle of the sun and all that kind of stuff. Can make it very damaging on your eyes. So make sure you're wearing them. Good morning, John. Good to have you with us this morning as well. Others, as you join on, check in. Even if you're not watching us live, go ahead and check in, and because I'll go back in a couple times to see who was here. I don't take attendance. It doesn't matter. I'm overwhelmed that as many of you want to join as do. But I mostly go in to see if you've got other comments or questions that I need to address, because you can always do that on the stream, even if it's not the live video, because as I said, I go back in and see. And you can also you can also send me a text if you would prefer to do it that way. So if you see me looking to my right, I'm checking out my phone. If you see me looking to my left, it's I'm watching the stream and seeing what kind of comments are there. I don't always see your questions and comments right off the bat for whatever reason. Sometimes seems to happen that way with Facebook. As soon as I end, then I go and look, and I've got extra comments or things to address. So if I don't say something, if I don't say good morning back to you or anything like that, that's why. Just because it wasn't showing up. But we got a lot to do today. We got 3 chapters to do, so we're going to get to it pretty darn quick here. The only announcement would be, or two announcements, I guess, would be one regarding PB Reads the Bible. We're done for the week. We're done with this book. So we're going to take, obviously, the rest of this week as a break. And I think we're going to take next week as a break from it, because I have things going on Monday and Tuesday, like all day. So I wouldn't be able to do anything. So we'd only have Wednesday and Thursday. That wouldn't be good. So we will start on March 21st, Monday, March 21st. Should be okay anyway. With a look at the Gospel of John. Look at the Gospel of John. We will start there on the 21st, and I'll get that into the bulletin as well, so that other friends can join us. Good morning, Ron. Excuse me. And good morning, Cheryl. Glad to have both of you joining us as well this morning. Just water with a squeeze of lemon, hint of lemon. Okay, so we're going to look at the last three books of Judges, the last three chapters of Judges, 19, 20, 21. So some things to remember, reminders. We've mentioned them before, but we're going to see, reminders. We spoke about how the treatment of women goes, so goes Israel. And we can think back to the early stories and Achsah, how she, and this is, pay close attention to this one, she was on her donkey and got off of her donkey, very bold, and went over and spoke to her father, requesting a gift, of springs, of water springs. Okay, and she's named, she's honored, she's bold, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and we also have other women that are named and play important roles. Deborah and Jael, right? We've got them in there. And we've got some women that aren't named. We've got a woman that isn't named, just Jephthah's daughter. We saw what happened with her. And then we see some other women. We see Samson's wife, who's never named, and Delilah. And then we're going to and then we're going to have a woman plays an important role in this last story, but not in a good way. So the women have gone from being honored and respected and powerful women playing important roles to being tools used by others, and abused by others. We see Jephthah with his stupid vow ending in resulting in him having to kill his daughter. And then we have Samson's wife and Delilah both being used by others as tools to try to get at Samson. Okay, and we're going to see even worse treatment of a woman in this next section. That's important to remember. Yesterday's passage was all about the religious decline of Israel and how far it had gotten complete religious chaos, setting up idols and worshiping in other places and all that stuff. Today's is more about social upheaval, social chaos taking place, and how far Israel had fallen. From the early stories, when the tribes willingly came together to support each other and fight for each other, to fewer and fewer wanting to get involved. And then we have some battles between clans taking place, between tribes. And then we have Samson wanting to have nothing to do with anybody, trying to do everything all on his own. Now we're going to see the tribes uniting, but not against a foreign enemy. They're fighting against themselves. Okay, so chapter 19. In those days, when there was no king in Israel, a certain Levite, residing in the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. Remember Judah? But his concubine became angry with him, and she went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Judah, and was there some 4 months. Pause. So it says his concubine became angry with him, is how the NRSV translates it. The NIV translates it differently and puts blame on her, says she was unfaithful to him. It can also be that he is the one that is wrong, that he was unfaithful to her, and perhaps even abused her in some way. That does make more sense because she left him, and because of what it says next. Then her husband set out after her to speak tenderly to her and bring her back. Speaking tenderly to her, like, oh, I'm so sorry for what I've done. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? to bring her back. And he had with him his servant and a couple of donkeys. When he reached her father's house, the girl's father saw him and came with joy to meet him. His father-in-law, the girl's father, made him stay, and he remained with him 3 days. So they ate and drank, and he stayed there. On the fourth day, they got up early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Fortify yourself with a bit of food, and after that you may go." So the two men sat and ate and drank together, and the girl's father said to the man, "Why not spend the night and enjoy yourself?" When the man got up to go, his father-in-law kept urging him until he spent the night there again. On the fifth day, he got up early in the morning to leave, and the girl's father said, "Fortify yourself." So they lingered until the day declined, and the two of them ate and drank. When the man with his concubine and his servant got up to leave, his father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, "Look, the day has worn on until it is almost evening. Spend the night. See, the day has drawn to a close. Spend the night here and enjoy yourself. Tomorrow, you can get up early in the morning for your journey and go home." Pause. I read a pretty long piece, so we're going to pause there. He gets there to Bethlehem, to where the concubine's father lived, and where she was now had retreated. Doesn't say anything about any contact between him and her. All the contact is between the two men. At this point, the woman is no longer this honored, respected person. She is merely a piece of property that is being traded back and forth, seemingly, between two men. The father is happy to see the son-in-law. The woman, we're not told what kind of a reaction she's having, because it doesn't matter. Is she happy to see him? Is she glad that he came back to get her? We're not told. I should express to or explain what a concubine is. Because we might have different understandings. Quite legally and officially, she's a secondary wife. She's another wife. We would presume then that since she's being called a concubine, that the Levite has another wife at home, but she is a secondary wife. Now, based on the laws of the time, a secondary wife is supposed to be treated just as well as your primary wife. Again, why would anyone want to have more than one wife? I don't know. But a secondary wife is supposed to be treated with all the same respect, all the same honors and treatment, everything that a primary wife receives. Sorry about that. Good morning, Marcia. I missed you there. But we're not told anything about her reaction when the Levite shows up. I should also say this is not the same Levite as from chapters 17 and 18. This is a different guy. That guy started from Bethlehem and went north into Ephraim. This guy is living in Ephraim, goes down to Bethlehem, and now wants to make his way back up to Ephraim. But he hangs out there for a couple days. Basically, it's like they're having a bro party. The two guys are chilling and drinking and eating, and it's consistently talking about the two of them are doing that. The woman isn't involved. She might be there, but she's not part of this celebration or this feasting and the drunkenness that's taking place. That's all between the two men. Finally, gets up to go after 5 days, and the father-in-law again is saying, "Hey, it's getting dark out. It's the day is fairly worn along. You're not going to make it. You might as well just stay here one more night." But the Levite finally, for whatever reason, he had allowed it to happen a couple days. He's not going to allow it anymore. But the man would not spend the night. He got up and departed, and arrived opposite Jebus, that is Jerusalem. Pause. At this time, Jerusalem is not possessed by the Israelites. The Jebusites still live there. The Israelites were never able to defeat the Jebusites until King David. You'll read that in 2 Samuel, how he did that. He had with him a couple of saddled donkeys, and his concubine was with him. When they were near Jebus, the day was far spent, and the servant said to his master, "Come now, Let us turn aside to this city of the Jebusites and spend the night in it. But his master said to him, we will not turn aside into a city of foreigners, but we will continue on to Gibeah. Then he said to his servant, come, let us try to reach one of these places and spend the night at Gibeah or at Ramah. So they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. They turned aside there to go in and spend the night at Gibeah. He went in and sat down in the open square of the city, but no one took them in to spend the night. Pause. So he doesn't want to stay at Jerusalem because he figures they're foreigners. I'll be better off if I go, and if we keep moving on and we stop in a city, in an Israelite town, And so he goes into the square. The custom, the rule, the law is that the city square should have people in it to welcome the stranger. So he knows that if I go to the city square, somebody is supposed to come along. If they're not already there, they're supposed to come along, talk to me, welcome me as this traveler, and give me a place to stay for the night. There are no Howard Johnsons or not even a Holiday Inn Express. So you rely on the people who live in the community to give you a place to stay. That is not only a rule of hospitality, but we can see it as laws in Deuteronomy, in particular for what people? Levites, because Levites aren't supposed to have their own land. They're supposed to live off other people. And they had a couple cities or something like that, they places to go. But a Levite, traveling Levite, they should be extra honored. The one commentary says the people of this town should be falling all over each other, trying to give this man the honor and hospitality that the law required. But there's nobody there. So we're told something that tells us about this community, which tells us about Israel. It tells us about Israel as a whole, because the individual characters and the individual communities in these stories, and especially in this part of it, are reflections of the community at large. So although we're only speaking about Gibeah and how rude and inhospitable they are, it describes all of Israel. Continuing. Oh, and we're reminded several times in this story of the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, because the angels of the Lord go to the city square, and no one's there except for the stranger, Lot. He's not a citizen of the community. He's the only one that comes and speaks to them and welcomes them in. So right off the bat, we're seeing some similarities here between Gibeah and the lack of hospitality that Sodom had. Continuing. Then at evening, there was an old man coming from his work in the field. The man was from the hill country of Ephraim, and he was residing in Gibeah. Again, an echo to Lot, person who's not really from the city, but is living there. The people of the place were Benjaminites. They're specifying that. He's not. He's an Ephraimite. When the old man looked up and saw the wayfarer in the open square of the city, he said, where are you going, and where do you come from? He answered him, we are passing from Bethlehem in Judah to the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, from which I come. I went to Bethlehem in Judah, and I'm going to my home. Nobody has offered to take me in. We, your servants, have straw and fodder for our donkeys, with bread and wine for me and the woman and the young man along with us. We need nothing more. Pause. So he's trying to put it out there. We're not going to be much bother. We really just need a place to stay. Although the rule of hospitality says you feed and take care of the people and their animals. The old man said, peace be to you. I will care for all your wants. Only do not spend the night in the square. So he brought him into his house and fed the donkeys. They washed their feet and ate and drank. So this one guy who's a stranger, not a citizen of the town, is the only one that follows the rules of hospitality, welcomes this traveler into his home, which requires him to take care of them and guarantee their safety as well. While they were enjoying themselves, the men of the city, a perverse lot, surrounded the house and started pounding on the door. They said to the old man, the master of the house, "Bring out the man who came into your house so that we may have intercourse with him." Pause. Again, an echo back to the story in Genesis with Sodom. And yes, they want to have sex with a man. That's not the point, because it's not loving homosexual sex. We're talking about rape, gang rape of a human being, and a man of a man. That's the point of both stories. And the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Since this man is my guest, do not do this vile thing." Pause. Because he's my guest. I'm protecting him. I'm supposed to protect him. I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do. You're violating all the rules of hospitality, as well as wanting to commit rape. "Here are my virgin daughter and his concubine. Let me bring them out now. Ravish them and do whatever you want to them. But against this man, do not do such a vile thing." Pause. Wow. Because that's better than allowing them to rape a guy. Let them rape two women instead. No, not a good thing, right? But again, an echo back to that story in Sodom, because Lot makes the same offer. However, the angels in God strike the men with blindness so that they're wandering around, and the angels pull Lot back inside and all that stuff. So nothing happens to Lot's daughters. But here we get something else. We're wondering. And people who are hearing this story for the first time, they're going to have those echoes too. But the men would not listen to him. So the man, this would be the Levite seized his concubine and put her out to them. They wantonly raped her and abused her all through the night until the morning. And as the dawn began to break, they let her go. As morning appeared, the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was until it was light. Pause. So the Levite seized the concubine. This is almost a spoiler. The word is the same word that's going to be used in the next section with grasped. It's a very strong word, a strong verb involving physical force, and abuse. It's like not just grasping or seizing, very strong and pulling, yanking, that kind of thing. It's a very violent form of seizing, very violent form of seizing. We're left at this point, she makes it to the door. She makes it and she falls down at the door of the house where her master was. We don't know if she's alive or dead. We don't know if she's alive or dead. In the morning, her master got up, opened the doors of the house, and when he went out to go on his way, there was his concubine lying at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. "Get up," he said to her, "we are going." But there was no answer. Then he put her on the donkey, and the man set out for his home. Pause. We see in this the absolute callousness of this man, solely concerned about himself, not about this woman at all, his concubine, his secondary wife, for whom he was supposed to show the same care as his primary wife. He doesn't even check on her as soon as he gets up in the morning. It says, when he went out to go on his way. So he got up, presumably ate, brushed his teeth, packed his bags. When he was ready to leave, he goes outside, finds her there, doesn't fall apart in tears or at this point speak tenderly to her. All he says is gruffly, "Get up. We are going." She doesn't answer. We still don't know if she's alive or dead. She might be unconscious. The author does not tell us. That's important. He put her on the donkey, and the man set out for his home. Continuing from there, when he had entered his house, he took a knife, and grasping his concubine, he cut her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her throughout all the territory of Israel. Then he commanded the men whom he sent, saying, "Thus shall you say to all the Israelites, has such a thing ever happened since the day that the Israelites came up from the land of Egypt until this day? Consider it, take counsel, and speak out." Pause. End of chapter 18. Grasping his concubine, the same word that was used just a few chapters earlier to describe how he forced her outside to be raped by all the men. He again grasps her, seizes her, pulls, forcibly abuses her body. We still don't know if she's alive or dead. Did she die on the doorstep following the night of rape and abuse? Did she die on the donkey during the ride from there? I'm sure a very rough ride from there to the hills of Ephraim. Or did she die when he started to cut her apart? We're not told. One commentary says she died. She died when she was raped. She died when he put her on the donkey. She died when he cut her into pieces. She died multiple times, and in fact is still dying. The treatment of women. So as go the treatment of women, so goes the social condition and of Israel. So he cuts her apart, disgusting, and sends her to all the tribes of Israel, which is a twist. It's a perversion of something that took place in other places in Scripture. When they wanted to unite the tribes of Israel, they took an ox and cut it up into a bunch of different pieces and sent it out with messages to unite the tribes of Israel. But he's doing it with a human being who may have still been alive when he started to do it. And his message to all the Israelites, has such a thing ever happened since the day the Israelites came up? What is the thing he's referring to? Because he does not give any details. Is it the fact that he was mistreated, that nobody was hospitable to him, that they were rude and didn't take care of him? Was it that the people raped his concubine, his secondary wife? Or is it that he cut her up into 12 pieces? Which is the thing that he is talking about as being so terrible, and has this ever occurred before? Continuing, what's going to be the response? Then all the Israelites came out from Dan to Beer-sheba, including the land of Gilead, and the congregation assembled in one body before Yahweh at Mitzpah. And Mitzpah is the same place that, hang on a sec. Don't know what it is. Mitzpah is the same place that Jephthah had made his disastrous vow to God about whatever comes out of my house first is who I'm going to kill. All right. The chiefs of all the people, of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 foot soldiers bearing arms. Now the Benjaminites heard that the people of Israel had gone up to Mizpah, and the Israelites said, "Tell us, how did this criminal act come about?" Pause. Still not knowing, still not told what criminal act they're talking about. They might be just talking about this woman being cut up. The Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered, "I came to Gibeah, that belongs to Benjamin, I and my concubine to spend the night. The lords of Gibeah rose up against me and surrounded the house at night." Pause. He's lying. He's lying. We're never told that it was the lords of Gibeah. We're told that it was a riotous, raucous mob, right? I forget the exact wording that they said, a perverse mob that gathered around. They intended to kill me. That's not what their intention was. And they raped my concubine until she died. Pause. Leaves out the whole part about him pushing her outside, sacrificing her to save his own skin. And he's adding in that she died when we don't know when she died. Then I took my concubine and cut her into pieces and sent her throughout the whole extent of Israel's territory, for they have committed a vile outrage in Israel. So now, you Israelites, all of you, give your advice and counsel here. Pause. He's really only concerned about his mistreatment. His mistreatment. We can see that because of the way he doctors the story, the way he changes things, the way he omits some details and twists other ones for his benefit to make himself look good. And so he's seeking revenge on these people, and he wants to use all of Israel to do it. All the people got up as one, saying, "We will not any of us go to our tents, nor will any of us return to our houses. But now this is what we will do to Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot. We will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, and 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 of 10,000 to bring provisions for the troops who are going to repay Gibeah of Benjamin for all the disgrace that they have done in Israel." So all the men of Israel gathered against the city, united as one. The tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What crime is this that has been committed among you? Now then, hand over those scoundrels in Gibeah, so that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel." But the Benjaminites would not listen to their kinsfolk, the Israelites. The Benjaminites came together out of the towns of Gibeah to go out to battle against the Israelites. On that day, the Benjaminites mustered 26,000 armed men from their towns, beside the inhabitants of Gibeah. Of all this force, there were 700 picked men who were left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hare and not miss. And the Israelites, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 armed men, all of them warriors. Pause. So it's describing the beginning of what this is, describing the setting for what the battle is going to look like. We've got 400,000 on one side and 26,000 on the other. However, although the Benjaminite army is smaller in number, it describes how good they are, and that there are even, 700 who are special because they're left-handed. Nobody expects a left-handed warrior. We remember that from earlier, right? So there's like specially trained warriors, assassins kind of thing is possible anyway. And it also could just be the fact that they're left-handed. Nobody expects somebody to be left-handed when they're fighting them. They did send some people into Benjamin, saying, going throughout them saying, "Hey, just give us these people." That was actually probably a pretty decent thing for them to do. And the people of Benjamin should have given up the culprits, so to speak. Although they did, but they didn't. They didn't. So we're seeing the beginnings of a civil war. This is what this is shaping up to look like. Continuing, the Israelites proceeded to go up to Bethel, where they inquired of God, "Which of us shall go up first to battle against the Benjaminites?" And Yahweh answered, "Judah shall go up first." Pause. we see here an echo, a bookend to the beginning stories when, and again, remember that for a holy war, one of the things about a holy war is seeking, an oracle from God, an oracle from God. And so they're following that, they're talking with God. And God says, Judah, let Judah go up first. But we remember back to the early stories, the first chapter or two, those beginning chapters, when Judah was selected to go up first, and it showed their primacy and how great they were, and how special. Here we see God sending Judah up first, not to honor them, but to judge them, that they will be judged. Continuing, then the Israelites got up in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. The Israelites went out to battle against Benjamin, and the Israelites drew up the battle line against them at Gibeah. The Benjaminites came out of Gibeah and struck down on that day 22,000 of the Israelites. The Israelites went up and wept before Yahweh until the evening, and they inquired of Yahweh, shall we again draw near to battle against our kinfolks, the Benjaminites? And Yahweh said, go up against them. The Israelites took courage and again formed the battle line in the same place where they had formed it on the first day. Pause. So we're seeing a couple things here in this one. Remember, the idea of them weeping to Yahweh in other places has Yahweh ascending someone to be a deliverer, to be a judge. So here they're weeping to Yahweh, but no deliverer is going to come. So they ask another oracle, and God says, yeah, go ahead, go up against, not say that you're going to be successful. The oracle does not say that. God doesn't say that. God just says, go up against them. God's not done judging Israel and using Benjamin as the tool for that judgment, is what the author is saying here. And they reformed their line, same place. So the Israelites advanced against the Benjaminites the second day. Benjamin moved out against them from Gibeah the second day and struck down 18,000 of the Israelites, all of them armed men. Then all the Israelites, the whole army, went back to Bethel and wept, sitting there before Yahweh. They fasted that day until evening. Then they offered burnt offerings and sacrifices of well-being before Yahweh. And the Israelites inquired of Yahweh, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, ministered before it in those days, saying, shall we go out once more to battle against our kinfolk, the Benjaminites, or shall we desist? Yahweh answered them, go up, for tomorrow I will give them into your hand. Pause. So the third oracle, this time God does promise them victory for the Israelites, because now God is ready to judge the Benjaminites and use the rest of Israel to do it. However, they take it too far. So Israel stationed men in ambush around Gibeah. Then the Israelites went up against the Benjaminites on the third day and set themselves in array against Gibeah as before. When the Benjaminites went out against the army, they were drawn away from the city. As before, they began to inflict casualties on the troops along the main roads, one of which goes up to Bethel and the other to Gibeah, as well as in the open country, killing about 30 men of Israel. Pause. Just going to pause there. And here we hear an echo to an episode in the book of Joshua, where a similar tactic was used against the city of Ai. And a similar tactic was used where they feigned losing to draw them out into a place and then ambush. The Benjaminites thought, they are being routed before us as previously. But the Israelites said, let us retreat and draw them away from the city toward the roads. The main body of the Israelites drew back its battle line to Baal Tamar, while those Israelites who were in ambush rushed out of their place west of Geba. There came against Gibeah 10,000 picked men out of all Israel, and the battle was fierce. But the Benjaminites did not realize that disaster was close upon them. Yahweh defeated Benjamin before Israel, and the Israelites destroyed 25,100 men of Benjamin that day, all of them armed. Then the Benjaminites saw that they were defeated. The Israelites gave ground to Benjamin because they trusted to the troops in ambush that they had stationed against Gibeah. The troops in ambush rushed quickly upon Gibeah. Then they put the whole city to the sword. Now, the agreement between the main body of Israel and the men in ambush was that when they set up a cloud of smoke out of the city, the main body of Israel should turn in battle. Again, same thing that they had done against Ai. But Benjamin had begun to inflict casualties on the Israelites, killing about 30 of them. So they thought, surely they are defeated before us as in the first battle. But when the cloud, the column of smoke, began to rise out of the city, the Benjaminites looked behind them, and there was the whole city going up in smoke toward the sky. Then the main body of Israel turned, and the Benjaminites were dismayed, for they saw that disaster was close upon them. Therefore they turned away from the Israelites in the direction of the wilderness, but the battle overtook them. And those who came out of the city were slaughtering them in between. Cutting down the Benjaminites, they pursued them from Nohah and trod them down as far as a place east of Gibeah. 18,000 Benjaminites fell, all of them courageous fighters. When they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, 5,000 of them were cut down on the main roads, and they were pursued as far as Gidom, and 2,000 of them were slain. So all who fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 arms-bearing men, all of them courageous fighters. But 600 turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and remained at the rock of Rimmon for 4 months. Meanwhile, the Israelites turned back against the Benjaminites and put them to the sword, the city, the people, the animals, and all that remained. Also, the remaining towns they set on fire. Pause. So for Israel, it wasn't enough to kill and destroy the city of Gibeah. They killed almost all of the all of the men of the entire tribe, all of the prime light of their life men. That wasn't enough. They then went and destroyed all of the towns of Benjamin, killing all of the old people, all the women, all the children, all the animals, so that the only thing left are these 600 men who are hiding out in the rock of Rimmon. That's far beyond what any judgment God wanted. Now the Israelites had sworn at Mitzpah. Remember, Mitzpah is where Jephthah had made his ill-advised and ill-spoken vow. No one of us shall give his daughter in marriage to Benjamin. And the people came to Bethel and sat there until evening before God, and they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly. They said, "O Yahweh, the God of Israel, why has it come to pass that today there should be one tribe lacking in Israel?" Pause. The irony is all they had to do was look in the mirror, and they would know why it came to pass, because it was them. They are refusing to accept responsibility for what has transpired, not only through this battle, but through their decadence and their failure as tribes, socially and religiously, and this disunion. Yeah, thinking back to the fact that the Levite cut his concubine up into 12 pieces. It's ironic that they, because one body became 12 pieces, the 12 tribes were supposed to be one body, and they did come together as one body to go against one tribe. So horrible. But they're not accepting responsibility. On the next day, the people got up early and built an altar there and offered burnt offerings and sacrifices of well-being. Then the Israelites said, "Which of all the tribes of Israel did not come up in the assembly to Yahweh?" For a solemn oath had been taken concerning whoever did not come up to Yahweh at Mitzpah, saying, "That one shall be put to death." But the Israelites had compassion for Benjamin, their kin, and said, "One tribe is cut off from Israel this day. What shall we do for wives for those who are left, since we have sworn by Yahweh that we will not give them any of our daughters as wives?" Then they said, is there anyone from the tribes of Israel who did not come up to Yahweh at Mitzpah? It turned out that no one from Jabesh Gilead had come up to the camp, to the assembly. For when the roll was called among the people, not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead was there. So the congregation sent 12,000 soldiers there and commanded them, go, put the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead to the sword, including the women and the little ones. This is what you shall do. Every male and every woman that is lain with a male, you shall devote to destruction. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins who had never slept with a man, and brought them to the camp at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. Then the whole congregation sent word to the Benjaminites who were at the rock of Rimmon and proclaimed peace to them. Benjamin returned at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead, but they did not suffice for them. Pause. Wow. So we're told that they had compassion for Benjamin, but they had no compassion for the people of Jabesh Gilead, did they? So the duplicity of this people is beyond compare, beyond Paul. And they're resorting to murder, kidnapping, and to try to make up for some of the stuff that they've done wrong. So they're doing more wrongs in order to try to make up for what they did wrong, and still not accepting their own responsibility. But there's not enough. There were only 400 virgins, and there's 600 men left. They're 200 short. Where's my wife? The people had compassion on Benjamin because Yahweh had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. No, Yahweh didn't. They did. So the elders of the congregation said, what shall we do for wives for those who are left, since there are no women left in Benjamin? And they said, there must be heirs for the survivors of Benjamin, in order that a tribe may not be blotted out from Israel. Yet we cannot give any of our daughters to them as wives, for the Israelites had sworn, cursed be anyone who gives a wife to Benjamin. So they said, look, the yearly festival of Yahweh is taking place at Shiloh, which is north of Bethel, on the east of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, and south of Lebonah. And they instructed the Benjaminites, saying, go and lie in wait in the vineyards and watch. When the young women of Shiloh come out to dance in the dances, then come out of the vineyards, and each of you carry off a wife for himself from the young women of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. Then, if their fathers or their brothers come to complain to us, we will say to them, be generous and allow us to have them, because we did not capture in battle a wife for each man, but neither did you incur guilt by giving your daughters to them. The Benjaminites did so. They took wives for each of them from the dancers whom they abducted. Then they went and returned to their territory and rebuilt the towns and lived in them. So the Israelites departed from there at that time by tribes and families, and they went out from there to their own territories. Wow. Again, as the treatment of women goes, so goes the society of Israel. And here we reach the final verse, which has been used before, and lets us know what the total condition is and how totally chaotic and depraved the things are taking place, how bad it is, religiously and socially. In those days, there was no king in Israel. All the people did what was right in their own eyes. End of Judges. All right, friends. Whew. I know it was a long session today. But we got those 3 chapters in. Like, I hope you appreciate why. I hope you know that and understand. It was really hard to break that story up. Just doing one chapter at a time wouldn't have done the story justice. They're so connected together. It flowed so much better that way. Anyway, I pray that it was beneficial to you, that you learned something or relearned something, that God spoke to you through something we read and said. Also, my friends, as you go about your days, not just today, but every day, don't be like Samson. Keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to what our living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say thank you, and then tell somebody. Be blessed, my friends. Be blessed. Until we meet again.